It's been a heavy fighter meta for the last 3 years. And the problem is there's not enough trained pilots who understand how to fly and play the game well. And so here's the thing. You have this fucked up thing going on in the SC community from my point of view. And that is you have not enough trained pilots who know what they're doing. And they're making this loud noise and they're saying, oh, light fighters are so meta, blah, blah, blah. And they're talking about how light fighters are the worst thing ever and how they kill everything. And they're forgetting that you have the Vanguard Sentinel, you have the Hurricane, you know, like you have all these ships that are, you know, really, really, really good. I mean, for God's sake, you even have the MSR, the Mercury Star Runner, which I made a video on recently, taking on like a gang of light fighters and winning because I can reposition and fight. So when people complain about the light fighter meta, I really do think it comes down to them not understanding how to play the game. And I think CIG's design direction is probably not close to what we currently have right now. I really don't think that CIG is happy with it. But I think in general, it's about 40% there, I think. Right now, we still need to address the weapons. We still need to implement electronic warfare. We still need to implement the enhanced atmospheric flight model. We still need to implement heat, which is a big deal. We still need to implement a better power system that works with works with the heat system and adds checks and balances to all the different signatures and the way the ships interact with each other. But in terms of the gunnery, in terms of the way the ships are performing, in terms of the nature of the 6 degrees of freedom environment, I think they're closer on that aspect of the flight model and the flight combat than other aspects. But it all works together, right? So if you change weaponry, it completely changes combat, right? As we saw with the Ares Ion, it was one-shotting people and that totally changed the combat, right? Now, my argument for the Ion was the Ion should feel really powerful. It should have a size 7 gun that fucking one-shots you, right? But it's all about how does that damage apply to something small and maneuverable like light and medium fighters. And I gave a very detailed explanation as to how I would do it. Now, that doesn't mean CIG is going to do it that way. By all means, it doesn't mean CIG is even going to listen. But I know what I would do. Because if you take into account the health of the overall big picture, every ship class and every ship should feel unique. It should have a purpose. It should have something it's good against and something it's really weak against, so that there is an aspect of your deployment, of your military battle group that complements each other, right? It's like if you go hunting, right, and you bring a dog with you, and you also bring a hawk, like if you're falconeering, right, not hawkeneering. If you're using a falcon to intercept other birds, if you're bird hunting, and then have the dog come up and return it, you're using the smell for the dog, which is complementing the human's ability to obviously go out and hunt. Like, if you were to break it down into a more, this is a bad example, but I like this example, right? Where, the bird has an ability that humans don't have. It can fly, right? The dog has an ability that humans don't have. It has a great nose. The human obviously has the intelligence, right? So those three things together create an effective combat unit. And that combat unit is to combat those damn birds that are flying around your farm. So it's the same idea when it comes to Star Citizen's combat. It's like you have a Sentinel, right? But the problem is the Sentinel does all the jobs really, really well. So there's really no reason to fly anything else but the Sentinel. But in a perfect world, you have the light fighters that are really good for holding control of an area. It's like infantry, right? Like infantry and battle tanks and stuff like that, and just armored infantry units hold areas of space, right? So there's a section of the city that you want to hold. Guess what? They're holding it. Light fighters hold space, right? They control an area. Anything that goes in that area is in trouble, right? In order for you to weed those people out, you need to send your own infantry in, right? Then you have your heavier fighters, which are, I guess you could say, the tip of the spear. They're for doing a lot of damage, but still having enough maneuverability to pick their fights. But they're not as effective at defending themselves against a fighter screen. So if you want to run heavy fighters versus a gang of light fighters, it's going to be tough. But your heavy fighters are going to help you take out the enemy bombers. So it's all an ecosystem. Everything works against each other, right? And I think that's what they're trying to go for, right? Except for, you know, they need to address obviously the autocannon turrets with the gimbal zone and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? But so in general, I think CIG is about 40% there. If I was going to take a guess, I'd say they're 40% happy, but it's 40% happy in the right direction. And that's what people need to kind of understand. It's like, it's 40% going in the right way. And the rest of it still needs to be developed. So we don't know yet, right? I hope that answers the question. That was a long rant. You learn that it's like the weather. At least this is how I see it. You learn like it sometimes comes into your life, and I think the trick is not to hold on to it or like sit in your depression, because I think there's a little piece of us that kind of likes the depression in a weird way, right? Like it's nice to kind of sit in it. At least that's what it was like for me, especially after the war. But then you start to find stuff that you really like, and then that starts to like give you life, and you can get through it. Because you get to a point I can only describe as a fuck it point. You know, like you reach this fuck it point where you're like, fuck it, I'm either gonna die right now or I'm just gonna live my life and be like, I don't fucking care anymore, right? And there's a certain kind of freedom that comes with that. And then that's like, I had that moment, and then I started just doing things in my life that I just have always wanted to do. I just was too afraid to do it. But in a way, that kind of episode of my life taught me some really important lessons, like truly important. And like, it's not that I don't have bad days, you know, and I still have sometimes a nihilistic view on life sometimes, right? But you can't have the moments of like real love if you don't have those moments where you just want to fucking kill yourself. I don't know, that sounds weird, but that's my experience, right? And for anybody who ever goes through depression, just remember that it doesn't stick around forever, and that there's something special about it that'll teach you something about yourself that you maybe weren't expecting. And it's going to color the rest of your life in a way where your light is going to shine through, and it's going to be brighter than you could imagine. That's all I have to say about that.